There is a force flowing through your body right now that has been revered, hidden and protected by ancient masters for millennia. It is not your thoughts. It is not your heartbeat. It is your breath, the invisible rhythm that shapes your consciousness, affects your energy and connects you to the fabric of the universe. The breath is more than survival. It is initiation. Throughout history, sages, monks, shamans, and alchemists have spoken in hushed tones about the true power of breathing. Not the mechanical inhale and exhale we perform unconsciously, but the sacred, intentional breath that alters states of awareness, activates dormant faculties, and opens the inner gates of transformation. So why was this knowledge hidden? Because breath is the gateway between worlds. It bridges body and spirit, mind and soul, seen and unseen. When used with awareness, it can calm the storm of thoughts, awaken the energy centers, and dissolve the boundaries of ordinary perception. In the right hands, it becomes a tool of healing, ascension, and power. In the wrong hands, it can manipulate, control, and deceive. Ancient texts often encoded breathwork teachings in metaphors: winds of the soul, rivers of light, serpents coiled within. The yogis of India developed pranayama. The Taoists cultivated inner alchemy through breath, and even the early Christian mystics practiced breath-linked prayers. All understood the same fundamental truth: the breath is the key to inner mastery. And yet, in modern life, this knowledge is almost forgotten, buried beneath noise, stress, and shallow breathing patterns that keep us disconnected. In this video, we will dive into why the ancients guarded this secret so closely, how breath was seen as a divine tool in spiritual traditions across the world, and what actually happens when we begin to breathe not just for survival, but for transformation. To understand why the breath was guarded by the ancients, we must first recognize how it was perceived, not as a biological function, but as a sacred technology. In Sanskrit, the word prana doesn't just mean breath, it means life force. In ancient India, pranayama was not merely a breathing technique, it was a path to liberation. The control of prana through breath was considered essential for mastering the mind, awakening the kundalini, and accessing higher states of consciousness. This was no casual practice. It was passed from master to student through lineage, often in secret to prevent misuse. The Taoists of ancient China shared a similar reverence. Their practices of qigong and neidan, inner alchemy, used breath to circulate qi, or vital energy, through meridians in the body. To them, breath was a cosmic conductor, a way of syncing the internal landscape with the external rhythms of nature. Inhalation gathered the energy of heaven. Exhalation grounded it into earth. The balance of yin and yang was woven into every breath cycle. In Egypt, the symbol of the ankh, often referred to as the key of life, was believed to be linked to breath. Some interpretations suggest it represented the breath of life transferred from the gods to humanity. In the hieroglyphs, gods are shown holding the ankh to the nostrils of pharaohs, as if bestowing divine breath. Not just air, but spiritual vitality. Even among the early Gnostics and Christian mystics, breath had a hidden meaning. The Greek word pneuma meant both spirit and breath. In Genesis, it is said that God breathed life into Adam, and this was not just oxygen but conscious awareness, a spark of the divine mind. Breath was the delivery mechanism for the soul. What's striking is how universal this reverence for breath was. Across continents and civilizations, the breath was seen as the bridge between matter and spirit, the tool through which transformation occurred. And because of its power, to heal, to elevate, to awaken, it was often kept hidden, restricted, or veiled in symbolism. To misuse the breath was to risk disrupting the sacred balance within, and to master it was to touch the edge of the divine. Most people breathe as if they are surviving, but the ancients breathed as if they were remembering. To them, the breath was not just a rhythm, it was a ritual. Every inhale was a gathering of divine intelligence. Every exhale was a release of density, of illusion, of everything that kept the soul confined. The act of breathing consciously was a statement to the universe. I am here, awake, and aligned. Let's start with something subtle but profound. Awareness of breath immediately brings you into the present moment. This is not coincidence. The breath is the only bodily function that exists both automatically and voluntarily. That means it lives at the threshold, the space between unconscious and conscious. And that's exactly where transformation begins. In esoteric systems, this threshold is the gateway to what's called the subtle body, not visible to the eye but deeply real in experience. The breath is the tool used to animate this body, to move energy through invisible channels known as nadis in the yogic tradition, or meridians in Chinese medicine. Without the breath, these channels remain dormant. With it, they become rivers of life force. Now consider retention, the pause between the inhale and exhale. Ancient practitioners believed this space, often referred to as kumbhaka, was where the veil between the physical and spiritual thinned. In that stillness, without air entering or leaving, the mind stops chasing, and a mysterious silence arises. It is within that silence that many claim to hear the inner voice, the subtle sound, or the whisper of the divine. And then there's the rhythm itself. A chaotic breath leads to a chaotic mind. A rhythmic breath, however, entrains the brain, calms the nervous system, and sends a signal to the body. You are safe. In this safety, deeper awareness emerges. Patterns of fear begin to dissolve. Hidden emotions surface to be released. And the body becomes not just a vessel of flesh, but a temple for transformation. In this first layer of breathwork, the ancients used control of rhythm and depth to train the mind. They taught that by extending the exhale, one could lower the heart rate, slow down thought, and access what modern neuroscience would call theta states, the frequency of intuition, trance, and creativity. But they didn't need EEG machines to know this. They experienced it generation after generation in caves, temples, and silent forests. And they guarded it because they knew, once someone controls the breath, they begin to control their inner reality. As we descend deeper into the mystery of breath, we begin to uncover layers that most traditions kept hidden from the uninitiated, not because they wanted to withhold power, but because they understood something essential. The breath is a mirror, and when used consciously, it reflects back every layer of your being, not just the peaceful surface, but the chaos underneath. One of the most profound teachings found in mystical schools is that the breath carries codes of memory. Every trauma, every suppressed emotion, every ancestral imprint. It lives in the body as tension, and breath is the messenger that can either avoid it or unlock it. This is why many ancient breath rituals were not peaceful at all. They were intense, deliberate, and sometimes even ecstatic. The practitioner would breathe rhythmically, with full presence, until old wounds surfaced and dissolved. These were not just exercises. They were ceremonies of purification. Through breath, one could travel into forgotten corners of the psyche, unearth buried energy, and integrate what was once fragmented. But the most guarded secret was this: the breath alters perception of reality. In certain ancient schools, such as the Egyptian mystery schools or the Hermetic lineages, it was taught that when one breathed in alignment with universal rhythm, a doorway would open, not externally, but within. This was sometimes called the inner temple, the eye behind the breath, or the voice within the silence. The practitioner would enter altered states without external substances, guided only by the breath. These altered states were not hallucinations. They were initiations. Visions would come, symbols would appear, time would dissolve, and in that space, teachings would be received, as if the breath was not just air, but a carrier of cosmic intelligence. Some even claimed that with sustained, sacred breath practice, one could begin to access what they called the breath of God, a metaphor for the original vibration of creation. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, it is ruach. In Islam, nafas ar-Rahman. In Taoism, Tao, breathing through all things. When one attuned their breath to this eternal current, duality would fade. The sense of separation between self and cosmos would collapse, and in that moment, the breath would breathe you. So how can we apply this ancient wisdom today, in a world that rarely pauses to even notice the breath? The first step is to become aware. Before altering the breath, before controlling anything, you must witness it. Sit in silence for just 2 minutes and observe. How are you breathing when you're not paying attention? Shallow or deep, fast or slow, in the chest or in the belly? This observation alone begins to shift something. It reconnects you to the present moment, the only place real transformation can occur. Once awareness is established, we move to conscious breathing. A foundational technique used by multiple traditions is the 4-7-8 breath. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7 and exhale slowly for 8. This method slows the heart rate, calms the nervous system, and prepares the mind for deeper work. Just 5 minutes of this practice can rewire your emotional state and interrupt cycles of fear, anxiety, or mental noise. Another powerful method is alternate nostril breathing, known in yoga as nadi shodhana. By alternating airflow through each nostril, you balance the 2 hemispheres of the brain, harmonize masculine and feminine energies, and cleanse the subtle channels through which prana flows. It is one of the fastest ways to induce clarity and calmness. But perhaps the most transformative practice is also the most simple: breath retention. After an inhale or exhale, pause. Rest in the stillness. That pause is the doorway. You're not doing, you're being. Stay there, even if just for a few seconds, and feel the mind dissolve. That space between breaths is where the ancient mystics said the soul speaks. Over time, these small pauses can expand into vast silences filled with insight. And finally, combine your breath with intention. Breathing without presence is just survival. Breathing with intention is alchemy. With each inhale, visualize yourself drawing in light, wisdom, or divine energy. With each exhale, release what no longer serves: fear, doubt, stagnation. You are not just moving air. You are sculpting your inner world. These practices are not about control. They are about remembrance. Every conscious breath you take reawakens the ancient rhythm that once pulsed through temples, caves, and mystery schools, and it begins to pulse through you again. The breath has always been with you. From your first cry to your final sigh, it is the quiet companion of your life, unnoticed, yet powerful beyond measure. The ancients did not worship the breath. They listened to it. They treated it as a sacred current, the thread that connects flesh to spirit, thought to silence, mortality to eternity. And they guarded its secrets not to exclude but to protect, because they knew that within the breath lies a force that can awaken, liberate, and elevate the soul. What they discovered in temples and deserts, in caves and sacred forests, is still available to you, right now. Not through dogma, not through belief, but through a single, conscious inhale. In this video, we've uncovered how breath was seen by ancient cultures as a divine instrument, a tool of transformation, healing, and inner mastery. We've seen how different traditions used it to enter higher states of awareness and to awaken dormant energy within, and we've explored how you, today, can reclaim this power with nothing more than your presence and intention. The secret of the breath is not in some distant monastery. It's not hidden in a forgotten manuscript. It's in you, waiting to be remembered, waiting to be felt. So the next time you feel lost, overwhelmed, or disconnected, don't reach outside. Breathe in, breathe out, return. And if this wisdom awakened something in you, subscribe to the channel and join this path of remembrance. Your journey inward is just beginning.